HunTav is not a kind tiefling, having both suffered and inflicted pain while growing up. She was born on the streets of Elturel and felt right at home after the descent into Avernus. She stole, bullied, and generally did whatever she thought she needed to in order to get stronger. When she saw one of Zariel's chosen hop aboard a Nautiloid, HunTav saw this as an opportunity to leave the rotting town of Elturel behind and find something to make her stronger. This wasn't a particularly well thought out move and was more of a spur of the moment thing. So here is HunTav. She is a criminal. She's not a good person. She was in Elturel, and during its descent into Avernus, she was already a criminal before that, and she's just going to carry on her ways. So yes, her background as a criminal, giving her proficiency in deception and stealth. She is a Zariel tiefling, giving her hellish resistance, so resistance to fire damage, dark vision, which is nice, strength +1, charisma +2, and a cantrip, which is thaumaturgy. She'll also get another spell at level 3. For her appearance, she took Cool Tone 5 for the skin, hairstyle 26B. I love how these aren't descriptive. Her eye colour is demonic green, hair colour auburn brown 4, or her horns are, come up here, style 2, head style 2, and her highlights are black. Highlight intensity 100. And lastly, she has tattoo number 7, which gives her the tattoo around the eyes and right in the middle of forehead. For her class, she is a ranger. She's a bounty hunter. This is kind of where she earns her money from. And an urban tracker. Kind of makes sense since she was in Elturel in a city. For her skills, she has taken up athletics, insight, and perception, on top of having all of these other inherited skills, as we would call it. All of these have been useful in her time as a criminal and a bounty hunter. And as for her ability scores, she's got a strength of 16, 14 for constitution and dexterity, intelligence, wisdom, and charisma at 10. So she's going to be quite greedy. Anything that will increase her power, she's going to take it. Level 2 is quite an interesting level for rangers because they get to pick a fighting style, and HunTav is going to pick 2 weapon fighting because she will be eventually using her offhand attacks at least once a round, if not more. As for her spells, she's going to go for jump and ensnaring strike at first because this will help her get into combat, and being a bounty hunter, it does mean the enemies have disadvantage on their saving throws against ensnaring strike. At level 3, she gets her subclass choice. She's going to go for Hunter's Prey, Hunter. And then she's going to take Horde Breaker in the hopes of proccing a certain weapon's ability more than once per turn. Also, she is going to pick the spell that all self-respecting rangers would have, which is Hunter's Mark. And as a Zariel tiefling, she gets Legacy of Avernus Searing Smite, which does an extra 2d6 fire damage on a hit. And a target with Searing Smite takes 1d6 fire damage every turn until it succeeds on a Constitution saving throw, which is going to be quite low because her charisma's 10. One thing I dislike about this spell is it uses both an action and bonus action to use up. Ugh. But anyway, she'll see if she can make use of it. And at level 4, she's going to take Dual Wielder. You'll see why later. But what it does mean is that she can use 2 weapon fighting, even if the weapons aren't light, and she gets a +1 bonus to armor class if she's dual wielding. HunTav is a glutton for punishment. She sees Abdirak, and she sees a kindred spirit. So she is going to go and get Loviatar's blessing, which isn't so much part of the mechanical build, just because this is who she is. So she will undergo this ritual. She will take part in this ritual. She will be an ardent apostle. Let's go for the performance check, because, or intimidation I suppose. We do get a bonus. We can have thaumaturgy because we are tiefling. This gives us advantage in all of these throws. So performance once again. And now we have advantage just because of the situation. And we've got thaumaturgy. Double advantage doesn't mean anything. And so she gets the blessing of Loviatar's love. However, having seen Abdirak use that mace, and having spoken to him, he's not going to give up that mace, and she wants it, and she is essentially a criminal, so she's just going to go and take it the one way she knows that she can. Ooh, no, that'd be bad. He has resistance to necrotic damage. So essentially we are going to go and kill Abdirak to go and get his mace. So there we are. Abdirak is dead. Sorry, go away, Shadowheart. Not your fault. We're going to take his mace and the assortment of tools he has at his disposal. Having picked up items from Abdirak, HunTav has been thinking about this, and she thinks Lae'zel is a potential risk. Also, she wants her armor. She doesn't want the Scythianki running off to her crush and exposing the rest of, well, herself really, to More Githyanki. She knows that Lae'zel will just have their heads chopped off probably. So we'll go and do that. And just to make sure that this is all done properly, we can now take this Githyanki half plate. So this is the full loadout for HunTav. All these items are found fairly early on in the game. The Goblin camp here is as far as you need to go. She got branded by True Soul Gut, which means she has the Gloves of Power. She picked up the Helmet of Grit. She's obviously got the Githyanki half plate. Also, having killed True Soul Gut, we have the Absolute's Talisman, the Ring of Poison Resistance, the Ring of Colour Spray. The Ring of Colour Spray is just when needed. One thing to note is this is once per battle that we can use Ring of Colour Spray, not once per short rest or anything. And she has 2 bonus actions, assuming her hit points are below 50% at least. Speedy Light Feet in the event that she dashes. And then as for weapons, well, the ranged weapon is Spell Thief, which makes sense because she can regain one of her spell slots. And then she's kind of got a few weapons at her disposal right now. So we've got the Ritual Axe, which has a chance to inflict Bane, as well as the Gloves of Power, which have a chance to inflict Bane. So we've kind of got 2 sources of that. Unfortunately, if the attacker has 25% or more hit points, they take 1d6 piercing damage themselves. We've also got Loviatar's Scourge, which I had in a video just not too long ago, which does an extra 1d6 damage to everyone around. And so yeah, there we have it. We've got resistance to necrotic damage because of Loviatar's Scourge. We've got fire resistance from being a tiefling and poison resistance from the Ring of Poison Resistance. A very aptly named ring there. And if she really wants, she's got Cyanide to equip. So that would, once per short rest, when the wielder misses an attack, that target would be encased in fairy fire, which can be useful. It's slightly situational, I suppose. The Amulet of Mistista, I was supposed to give that to Gale. I'll add that soon. So, what is the point of all this? So we've actually got kind of got a choice of which way round we equip these weapons, because at the moment, I'm going to start fighting goblins. We've got 2 goblins next to each other to use Horde Breaker with. And whichever weapon we have in our main hand, the effects of that weapon apply to the Horde Breaker attacks. So if I wanted to inflict Bane, or potentially inflict Bane on both of these goblins, I would start with this Horde Breaker here. Oh, look at that, we go first. So we have inflicted Bane, and then I can... It's a bit strange when we start combat like this, where you attack someone without any sort of warning. There's no talking, there's no cutscene. Any effects that you have inflicted on that attack, and within the round before that attack, you've still got. So I've still got a Horde Breaker follow-up, which I could attack Water Tiny with. Oh, that was lucky, getting a critical hit there. And I can still use Horde Breaker, not that there are 2 enemies close enough, sadly. But I've still got my action and bonus actions. So what I can do if I wanted to... Kill that goblin, come over here. Perhaps use the Ring of Colour Spray on both these goblins. And then with the offhands, I am dealing damage to myself, I do realise this. Usually the damage isn't very high, and once our hit points get low enough, she'll start healing some hit points because of the necklace. Also, when the hit points are low enough, she gets a bonus to her attacks. Now, what Astarion has done is picked up the Absolute's, what's it called, Warboard, and he has 2 bonus actions, and he's not usually concentrating. I have given him medium armor proficiency, and I can give the Shield of Faith to HunTav, so her armor class is now, didn't go over this earlier, her armor class is now 20. 12 from, oh that's very strange, 12 from armor, but it's 15 from armor, plus 2 from, oh there we go, plus 2 from dexterity, oh it was on Astarion's I think, plus 2 from dexterity, plus 1 from dual wielder, and plus 2 from Word of the Absolute Shield of Faith. If she goes down, she'll get back up. She is hardy, she's also got allies with her, such as Gale, and Astarion, who still has a bonus action and action. And if she needs to, she can take potions if she's getting into much trouble. So it's HunTav's turn again at the beginning of the next round. I cast Bless using Shadowheart, always a good choice. And so I'm going to use this offhand attack to take me below 25% hit points. So when I next attack, I'm going to get healed. This time for 1. It should be, well, it is 1d8. That was a bit unlucky. And I wonder if I attack again. I didn't get healed again. It can be very dangerous, but HunTav here, this is how she rolls. Now, with a decent strength and access to the jump spell, does have quite good mobility to get around the battlefields. I can jump to here. And I've still got my, well, one bonus action left. She is living on the edge, as it were. We can get our offhand attack, which will be with Loviatar's Scourge, to start dealing plenty of damage to these guys, while taking some herself. Shadowheart has the correct item so that when she heals, Hellrider's Pride I think it is, heals HunTav, or anyone, they gain Blade Ward. She doesn't mind everyone crowding around her. Armor class 20. Oh. She's still alive, she's still alive, it's all good, it's all good. So at this point I can, well, I've always got a choice of what I want to do. I could take my offhand attack to try and get some necrotic damage spread out. I could then use Horde Breaker. I was wondering about using my offhand attacks first, just so that I can get Loviatar's... Oh, it's until long rest, right, okay. So I have got a +2 bonus, cool, cool, cool. Right, so then I can, yeah, I could use Horde Breaker. Like so. Spreading out Bane, not all the time, but a fair bit of the time. And then maybe I want to take a risk and run up to these two and spread some necrotic damage over here. Oof, they did miss. Kill that goblin, the one behind is half dead now. It is risky though. HunTav could easily fall to the ground and I'll have to go and help her out. Unfortunately with Horde Breaker, if you are surrounded on either side by at least by 2 goblins, I'd say any humanoids, you can't actually target them both. Although the area of effect for Horde Breaker would in theory cover both goblins, you've got to center the area on one of the 2 targets. It doesn't really matter which one. Let's go with Warrior Soul. I can't actually target Sharp Eye Aggie here. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to whack her. I do want to be careful about walking up to Sharp Eye Merg and hitting her with Loviatar's Scourge, because I would hurt Astarion and potentially lose my Shield of Faith. So we're going to go up to the next 4 goblin and knock him dead. Also, quite interestingly, whenever you hit an enemy, any items that are nearby that can take damage and aren't immune to necrotic damage will also take it. So we've got the barricade, the wooden crate, and the booze tub. So it is one way to destroy lots of crates and containers all in one go. Although some things are immune to necrotic damage. For the sake of experiment and to show you whether this works or not, I'm going to put the goblin up here to sleep. And then get HunTav to hit that goblin with Loviatar's Scourge, offhand attack. Just to show you that it... No, here. Where has it gone? It does not double... Having a critical hit does not double the damage done by the Willing Whip ability, which is a bit sad, considering that most of the time damage like this would normally get doubled. Anyway, she does have Spell Thief, never forget that. We can be shooting enemies from afar and potentially regaining a spell slot. Oh, no, that didn't work. That looks like it just hit a stone wall or something. And when targeting on a single target, such as this ogre here, don't forget Hunter's Mark. She's been using her bonus actions to be dealing damage most of the time. But the damage does add up with Hunter's Mark against the single target, and it's worth trying for critical hits with Spell Thief. Obviously, if you've put a target to sleep and you get a critical hit against them by standing next to them, that's the way to get spell slots back. Now that fight was fairly easy because it's goblins, and I would say that this setup that HunTav has is probably best used against multiple weak enemies such as goblins, because she can get lots of attacks off using Horde Breaker and extra bonus attacks, and the fact that each attack does a small AoE of damage. So if you've only got a single enemy around, perhaps you would want to change her weapon to Cyanide, at least to give advantage for everyone for one turn, I guess. The Ritual Axe will be okay against a single enemy also, because it will potentially inflict Bane on the enemy, which then makes spells against them more effective if the spells affect saving throws. Unfortunately down here, the eggs, I've already checked, are resistant to necrotic damage, so they're only going to take half the damage they could do. But it does spread the damage out quite a lot. But it's not too much of a hassle to get rid of these eggs. For this fight, actually, to get to the eggs, HunTav did put on the spider step boots, so she can freely walk on these spider webs, although they are still difficult terrain. So she's going to try and hunt down this spider as best she can. And since she's going for a single enemy this time, rather than multiple ones like with the goblins. She's not so fussed about being at low health. And so she can start dealing decent amounts of damage out. And just do look at this, that the spiderweb has been hurt for 2 damage. So do be careful. If you want to leave some things unharmed, don't use Loviatar's Scourge against something nearby. Well, where'd you look at this? We have Loviatar's Scourge in our main hand. We've got all these little spiderlings around. So that's one lot of Loviatar's Scourge, and let's have another lot. Boom. Unfortunately, the web is destroyed. And these other spiders weren't in range, but we have just killed 3 of the spiders with 1 action. And then, with our bonus action, taken out 1 of the remaining. So, do you know what? Having 6 weak enemies is not that difficult for HunTav here. So she will simply kill off these 2 spiders with Horde Breaker. And look, she is dealing damage to herself, but she does now have an extra bonus action, which means she can be jumping around or casting Hunter's Mark, offhand attacks. So it's not the end of the world when she has less than 50% hit points. To increase the chances of getting a spell slot back, do try and use Horde Breaker multiple times in use Horde Breaker. So you get 2 attacks, potentially 2 chances for a critical hit to get a spell slot back. Obviously it didn't work that time, but it's not as if it will always be like that. So don't feel like you always have to use Loviatar's Scourge if you're worried about having a low number of hit points. She will use it as necessary. And at this particular moment, it is not necessary. And so at the end, she gets the final hit with the offhand attack to make sure she doesn't damage anyone else nearby. Now that we are in the Underdark, HunTav is going to equip Cyanide because Fairy Fire is particularly useful down here for, well, for Gale really, since he doesn't have Dark Vision. Plus everyone gets advantage against any enemies that are afflicted by Fairy Fire. And we're going to fight these Minotaurs. We're going to start off with the Hunter's Mark. And then we're going to attempt to hit them. And ideally we'll keep HunTav at the front, the other 3 can stay back, but we'll just have to wait and see what happens. Target obscured, so we need to get a bit closer. There we are. And we haven't used it so far. We're going to attempt an ensnaring strike. However, the chances of it are very low because we've only got a 55% chance to hit. So this isn't actually an ideal situation to use this. No, it worked. Unfortunately, HunTav didn't quite remember, not me. HunTav didn't remember that Hunter's Mark and Ensnaring Strike both use concentration, so don't make the same mistake. The Minotaur break free of Ensnaring Strike, which is a shame. They did have disadvantage from it, but the problem is the saving throw is low because it's just the averaging wisdom of HunTav, and Minotaurs have a +4 to their roll. So we're going to focus on the nearest Minotaur now. Searing Smite, since we can use that once per long rest. HunTav will stand toe to toe with any old Minotaur that comes at them. Shadowheart did put up Invoke Duplicity, so that should be a hit. Yeah, no worries. And that one's a miss, that's a shame. Gale would quite like to kind of give a spell slot back to HunTav for their silliness earlier. What we're going to do is we're going to come up close and hopefully do enough damage to kill this thing. Oh no, we didn't. We did get a critical hit and we did get a spell slot back after casting Hunter's Mark. It's going to be up to the others to finish off this Minotaur before anyone else gets hurt. Let me know what you think of HunTav. It's been a long time since I've made a Hunter, and especially since I've used Horde Breaker anyway on a Ranger, and I've never really seriously thought about using these weapons before, the Ritual Axe and Loviatar's Scourge. If you've made it this far, please consider subscribing. Thank you very much for watching, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one.